Milk is a last-minute addition to our panel. Yay! Is everyone having fun so far? Who have you seen? Who have you seen, Milk?
A line of people.
That's basically your DragCon experience.
Yes, totally.
Yeah, I've been going around the main floor because it's like you get caught in this morass of of never-ending selfies.
Well, I didn't realize like some queens were here. I didn't realize like Pearl was here.
I just met Pearl yesterday. Oh my god, she really.
You know,
we thought you were cute.
Pearl?
Okay, we thought you were cute. And season. Wow. Wow, that is a cute boy. Boulet Brothers, you want to take this away?
Yes, we're basically here to just discuss fashion and nightlife and how it's evolved over time and how, sort of like the influences of drag and how it's morphed into like, for a little while, club kids, and now it's split back up a little bit, and just how it's evolved over years through the decades, So yeah, we're just going to talk about our experience. We all have a unique perspective, basically, the three groups of us here. Us and James were in New York around the same era, actually, when the club kids were happening in New York at the Limelight. So we kind of saw the end of that, and then we moved out here in the early 90s, so we got to see some club fashion birth out here and change as well. So we're just going to kind of look at slides and talk about our experiences, and that's pretty much it. Do you guys mind if we just kind of talk about clubs and fashion and that sort of thing? Right.
That's kind of what it's about.
Me neither.
I don't know if you guys are familiar with the documentary called The Queen. If you're not, you should definitely check it out. It's from like 1967. It documents kind of like a pageant queens in New York, and it's national. They're looking for like Miss Natural Beauty or something. It's really kind of hilarious. But you get a view of what these girls were doing in the 60s, how their makeup was, and what the culture was like. And it gets really nasty. Andy Warhol was one of the judges.
Judy Garland was one of the judges. Truman Capote was there too.
It's kind of an amazing time capsule, but you basically just see a very realistic view of what was happening in drag in the late 60s. It's kind of amazing. And Crystal LaBeija ends up being like the star. She doesn't win, but she goes on to be the mother of the house of LaBeija and Pepper LaBeija, the Vogue movement and all that. So it's kind of a really far-reaching time capsule view into something that grows into a huge influence in the drag community.
It's sort of like the first like real exposure on a national scale, you know what I mean, that drag queens had. And that kind of leads into the next.
Well, wait a minute. I do want to say something about the Queen. The guy who made the Queen was one of the drag queens in it himself. Flawless Mother Sabrina.
Yes.
I don't know if you guys has he come to your club?
No.
Okay, Flawless Mother Sabrina was a queen in the 1960s, and she was like a fierce fucking queen. And she was, and now that you're here, I'm so glad that you're here because she's still around. She's 80 years old, and she is fucking out of her mind. And I always think that it's what you are going to be like at 80 years old. Okay? Yes. Because she's gone, like, as the decades progress, she's like, beyond surreal. It's like Dada. It's like so far past art. It's anti-art. She is such an amazing, and still so sharp and so quick and with it. She's in New York, and I want you to look her up because I think you're going to be sort of simpatico. The other thing about the Queen that I wanted to mention is when you watch it, there's this weird like patois, this weird accent that the queens talk in that isn't around anymore. And if you watch old Warhol movies, they have the same dialect. The queens in 1960s New York, and it's like a New York accent, but it's like real underground. And
you want to give an example of that?
Absolutely, darling. You can use those other names, but you can never use Crystal's darling. No, never her. It's kind of amazing. You really have to check it out.
You really have to watch that. My other big point about the 60s that I wanted to talk about, just very quickly, is that the drag queens in the 60s, when you think of like the Warhol girls, like Candy, Holly, and Jackie, okay, they were doing a 30s drag. They were all doing like a movie star thing because in the 60s, in the thrift stores at the time, that's what was still around, 30s and 40s vintage, and so they were buying that that's all they had to work with, and it was the first time in these movies, like movies from the 30s, were being seen again because TV was, like 50s and 60s and late night TV. So all these queens were watching 30s movies and getting inspired by it. And my point is that even though these girls were revolutionary and groundbreaking, and it was the first time that like they weren't female impersonators, they were drag queens, and they had their own characters and their own shtick that they were doing. Their look wasn't really groundbreaking. They weren't doing like the Pierre Cardin and the Courrèges and the Pucci and stuff that you associate with the 60s. They were just doing like what they could scrap off the streets.
I think economics is going to repeatedly come through because like the 80s, the me decade, like people had more money and it kind of reflects into how they express themselves during the day and the night. 90s changed too, and then in the 2000s with the internet and economy and what people had at their disposal, students and creative people, artists, we don't have tons of disposable cash, but what we have is a lot of imagination and ingenuity. So we take what we can afford, sprinkle some motherfucking glitter on it, like hot glue it up, and like go out and like celebrate it. So I think that's what they were doing. The vintage of the 30s became the fashion of the drag queens in the 60s.
Well, yeah, exactly. I noticed though that it isn't until the 70s when you get to the Coquettes in San Francisco, and you have these queens who all of a sudden drag starts to become at the forefront of avant-garde fashion, like Sylvester and these people, and then you also have Jane County doing punk rock.
Absolutely.
Right? And this is like the first time that you're starting to see drag queens like really come up with their own, nightlife style. And then in of course, Studio 54, it's more of the same thing. So then I know that you guys wanted to talk about.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah.
Who's
See,
that?
this is where
What's a Tony?
this is where drag took a wrong turn in the right direction, right? This is where all of us, the world that all of us come from, pretty much. This is someone that took drag and just went fucking crazy with it in a great way that inspired all of us to this day still. So yeah, we just, this is a great example of how drag started to develop, into a different direction.
Milk, do you remember your first Divine experience? Do you remember your first movie?
Oh, Jesus. I think it was Pink Flamingos.
Yeah.
I think when I was a child.
Oh, yeah?
I think so. I think I was at a friend's house, and his sister and her friends were watching it, and I was just like, "What the fuck is this?"
Yeah.
And did it ferment in your mind for many years?
I mean, it probably did, and that's why I am as insane as I am, I think.
Well, I think there's a whole bunch of people, like when you first see it and you realize the freedom that there can be in drag, and like that it doesn't have to be pretty.
Right. Excuse me. I'm half Heather, okay? And I'm half Booker. Well, I think what it was about was just like you can be crass with what you say, but you can be even more crass by like what you wear, and you can give a statement about what you're wearing, about who you are and what you represent by what you wear, not like what you say. I mean, she ended up saying some pretty shitty shit, but
She also ate shit too. Let's not forget. So that was also a little bit influential, a little different for drag queens, right?
The first fan letter I ever wrote was to Edith, the egg lady.
Oh my God, I love that.
I was 15 years old, and I had never seen any of the John Waters movies because they weren't in Saginaw, Michigan, but I knew who she was, and I identified with her for some reason. And I wrote her this letter, and I was like, my mom is really mean to me, and I'm going to run away from home, and I want to come to live in Baltimore, and maybe, because she had a thrift store, and I said, maybe I can work in your thrift store. And I was like, I love you so much. And she wrote me back.
Wow.
And she wrote me in this like chicken child scrawl that you couldn't, it took me like days to decipher, but she said, stay in school and love your mother, and maybe when you graduate you can come and visit or something like that. And like I held that letter like next to me, like I'm gonna get out of here and I'm gonna go to Baltimore and I'm gonna be with Edie. Like,
Wow, I love
and
that.
I remember, like literally, I haven't thought of that in so long. And then I lost the letter at some point along the way, and I'm so mad.
But like was that the response you were expecting?
No, I wanted her to say, get the next bus ticket, and I'll take care of you.
Yeah, like as vulgar as some people are, like when a letter is sent and then they respond, like they're real people, like they have real responses and they're actually somewhat responsible.
This wasn't on our itinerary, but it's an interesting thing that Lee Bowery, who we're going to talk about in a couple minutes, and Quentin Crisp are two people who have this, Lee Bowery was, of course, like 15 feet tall and, like terrifying, like in his, aesthetics. But when you met him, he was just a gentle little grandmother who took you, put his arm around you, and there would be a line around, like here today, but there'd be a line around the club to meet him, and every single, oh, darling, how are you? How beautiful. You look so wonderful. Like that. And he had this idea that the scarier you were, the nicer you had to be. And that was his whole aesthetic.
Oh, was that purposely done? Like, was that kind of like? Oh, okay.
There was, because I remember Quentin Crisp saying, the more you startle the horses, the nicer you have to be, or something like that. Like that was the whole, it's an old English gay thing, like that. If everybody hates you, you've got to go out of your way to show them how.
Well, we would know nothing about startling the horses.
In the '80s, you usually think of Lee Bowery and you think of the club kids and stuff. But there was that goddess right there. There was that goddamn goddess right there, Diane fucking Brill, who was the most amazing woman that has ever come out of the club scene ever. Okay, and I know you can't really get that from that picture right there, but she was, literally my idol for so long. Have you met her yet in New York? You haven't met Diane Brill? Oh, that's a little weird. You need to go out. She's out all the time. She's had a birthday party.
I was not invited.
Good. Dude, I need to be like your agent or something.
Yes, please.
And your party manager.
Would you? Party monster manager?
But, yeah. Anyway, Diane Brill was literally. It's a shame. I've noticed that if you're around in the '80s, you don't really have a presence anymore. It's like you sort of don't exist.
That's what we were having trouble finding. Like when we were trying to dig up all these influential people, and there was this big gap. We couldn't find any pictures. I was like, "Are you serious? Like these things were insane." These clubs we go to, and there's no proof of it.
The other person that I wanted to mention of the '80s was John Sex, of course, who was, it's funny because I see Kayvon Zand,
Oh, yeah.
There's a guy in New York now, Kayvon, who, I don't think he even realizes that he does John Sex.
There's these pools of inspiration that are kind of floating out there in the universe, and sometimes we'll wear something, and this happened to us recently. They're like, you are channeling blah blah blah, and I'm like, okay, really? Because I don't know that,
Yeah,
and they'll grab their phone and show me. They're like, look, and there's so many similarities to the way the eye is done or the hair, and I know Kayvon, and this is. It's from the same well, and he probably isn't aware of that.
I always think that, because people always ask me, do you think that Lady Gaga is ripping off the club kids? And it's that same thing where, no, but I don't really think, I think it's that it's out in the zeitgeist, these ideas are out there, and they've been, and she's just pulling from that inspiration.
Yeah, that's the way I see it too.
And I don't think she realizes that I wore every single one of those motherfucking outfits in 1985. She has no clue, but
she doesn't know that James St. James had the original transport egg before she ever thought of the idea.
I did have a meat dress, and I did wear a pork chop one time. So, but you can't get upset about that. You can't go around saying, she's told me, because she probably really didn't. She probably has an idea of who the club kids are, but I don't think she really,
I don't think she purposely picks out image that I'm going to copy it. She probably just gets influence from seeing, she likes that era, probably looks at it and takes bits of it and makes it her own, I think,
Yeah.
As long as you add something new to the look, even if you're taking inspiration from somebody, as long as you make it your own in some sort of way. For me, it does upset me when people are like, oh my God, you're serving such and such realness.
Right.
Yeah.
If somebody wears gray hair now, it's just
You're doing Max.
realness.
Right.
She invented gray hair.
Right.
It's just calm down. People wore gray hair before. Old people.
Yeah.
But Right, and we don't like who Max is referencing, you know? Like, I mean...
Right,
yeah.
exactly.
That's an interesting thing, actually, because of RuPaul's, because there are queens that have worked looks for years, that then a new queen will come on RuPaul's and get this national exposure, and then they're suddenly, you know... Like,
They own that, yeah.
Yeah, then they own it suddenly,
Like,
you know?
I mean, speaking from experience, yes, I do. I love to put on a glitter beard, but I for sure know that I am definitely not the first, and I won't be the last to ever do that.
It's interesting with the glitter beard thing because it goes to Matthew and Andre J and stuff like in Grace Towers in San Francisco.
For sure.
But before that, the pictures that I was just showing you of the gender fucks in San Francisco with the Cockettes, like they were doing it fucking.
They did it 40 fucking years ago. Yeah.
Exactly.
And I was giving a talk in Wisconsin at a college, and someone asked me about what I thought.
Ouch.
This is a couple of it's University of Minnesota or Wisconsin. I don't know. Anyway, someone asked me what I thought about genderqueer, and at the time this was like 2011, and I didn't know really what it was yet. And they were sort of breaking it down for me, and they were saying, it's like you're neither gender, and you can wear a dress with no boobs. I was like, this shit is what I've been doing for like 30 years. Like, why am I not like giving like at the forefront of it? And there's always somebody who has done it before, and if it wasn't Lee Bowery, it was one of the 60s designers. If it wasn't the 60s designers, it was one of the surrealists. If it wasn't the surrealists, it was one of the in the like the dandies in the 1800s. I mean, like there's always somebody who has done everything, and like you said, as long as you're putting your own twist on it, you're making it your own.
Totally. Does anybody know who Ryan Burke is?
Oh!
Yes. Ryan Burke is, and that's the thing, like, I don't know if I've ever seen somebody do quite what Ryan Burke does.
Ryan is someone who is not taking from the inspiration pool. He's creating his own shit. I have never seen this. Like, I think that I've seen everything at this point, but when I see what Ryan's doing, he like is moving in a whole different direction, and he's really pushing the boundaries of what like beauty is in the 21st century.
The thing about him too is it's not just about his look. We kind of had our eye on him right when he was coming around when he's like 17, 18, in LA, and he is really talented. He's a really talented graphic designer. He's good with video. He's like one of
He's an artistic force. He really is. That the images that we're seeing now is just the expression of a few of his abilities. Just he does the makeup, he does the construction, and then he photographs it all himself. It's pretty amazing.
Everything.
Literally every single person here, start following Ryan Burke on Instagram right now.
Can you tell him to put his book together? Because he's wanting to release a book of all of his images, and so bug him about it.
It really is. It's a whole new way of looking at makeup and beauty and art and everything.
We're talking about people that changed fashion and nightlife. Obviously, this is one of the top 5 people that changed fashion. I mean, what can you say? What do you need to say about him, really? It's all right there.
Just take a look.
The thing that upsets me most about Lee dying is the fact that it's been 20 years since he died. He died 20 years ago, New Year's Eve. In fact, I remember it was New Year's Eve. We were at a party, and all of a sudden somebody ran in and screamed, "Lee's dead!" And we were all, and the whole New Year's Eve, everyone was just sobbing.
Well, you were probably drugged out, so you were just on the floor somewhere.
I was already on the floor when it happened. So, but the fact that he's been gone for 20 years, that's 20 years of looks that we never got to see, if this is where he was in 1993, where would he be in 2015? Like, it's so sad. I have goosebumps thinking how sad it is that we've lost, such a visionary. And I think that Ryan is a visionary on par with Lee.
Totally.
Yeah. Totally. And then, then we have, so this is the 80s.
Yeah, so this is kind of like, this is post all the Studio 54 kind of things that we're talking about. This is when gender hacking kind of started to make its way into pop culture. You can see these people that are like huge stars working gender hacking looks, like Annie Lennox and Grace Jones and all that. And it's just kind of interesting the way it evolved. You wouldn't have seen that 5 years before this period. The 80s really brought that about.
And then you wouldn't see it 5 years after that either.
Exactly.
It was just this weird little pocket in time, because 5 years later, the late 80s were all about the heavy metal, and it went this weird...
Which actually was kind of gender hacking in itself, but it was
I'm like, these guys are wearing more makeup than my fucking mother.
They were all... in their like tights and their packages.
Yeah,
Well,
totally.
machismo. It was like this
Yeah.
machismo energy with a full face.
It was like they
okay.
took this and then they made it their own heterosexual weird thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very strange. The club kids, when the club kids first started, I always mention this, and this is one of those perfect pictures that illustrates it. There wasn't any style there. It was a bunch of, we were just like putting on Halloween costumes basically, and it was pretty tragic. The club kids in the 80s were just the worst, you know? And look, there's someone in like a sombrero I mean, like, it's just, I don't know. It's really bad. And it wasn't until, the makeup wasn't a big part of it then. It was just literally just costumes. And I remember having a Viking hat and like, I mean, it was just there. And it wasn't until the 90s that everyone's starting to get that aesthetic down a little bit.
But again, it was like bending. You guys were bending the rules. You know what I mean? In a big way. So it had a big impact on people for years.
Well, what was happening was the scene right before the club kids was this scene at a club called Area, and then there was Palladium, and it was fabulous, and it was chic, and it was just glamorous as fuck, and it was it was very like posy, and everyone was sort of, you know, air kissing everyone, but it wasn't wild and crazy. And so the club kids was sort of a reaction against that, and it was because Michael was trying his damnedest to be a part of that scene, and they would have nothing to do with him. So he was like, fuck that, I'm gonna create my own scene. And so he did, and these were the people that he gathered around him. So it was a reaction against the scene before, which is what always happens.
Absolutely, it goes back and forth. Like,
You know-
I was like going to the limelight here, like underage. Like, I'm sure I'd seen you when I was like, I wasn't out of the closet. I grew up in a small town in Connecticut, and now I'm in
out
New
of
York,
the
and I'm like,
closet.
holy fuck, what's going on around me right now? And it was amazing. What you guys did this kind of goes back to what Grace Jones and Annie Lennox, and there's a quote that I'm gonna like totally mangle right now, but the gist is this: if you're as true as you could possibly be to yourself, and you work the things that inspire you, there's kind of like an energy and a light to that, and it then travels to the people that it speaks to, and you inspire that light in them. When you're expressing yourself to your truest self, that just kind of trickles down to all the people around you, and we're just kind of spreading that really positive energy. And even though the club kids might have been a backlash to what, you know, these posh bitches down the street, you guys really inspired me to be like, I can express myself however I want to. I took that idea back to Connecticut, and it just grew in me. Then I moved to the city and just kind of grabbed that torch and carried it in my own way. Wow, that was some mega speech, wasn't it?
That's fantastic. Walt Paper is one of the people in the club scene. Do you know Walt?
I know of him. I've never met him.
He is, once Walt came into the club scene is when you start seeing the attention to makeup and detail, and Kabuki is another one, and Matthew Anderson and Zaldi, who, you know, Matthew and Zaldi designs all of Rue. And when they started coming in, they gave the club kids a polish and a chic, I guess, that they didn't have before. So I just sort of, I always think that these are the people that changed the club kids into what it is that we think of now. So
took it a step further.
yeah. Then, of course,
Yeah.
Mama Rue.
So this we had to put in because obviously this is the person that changed drag in the most way probably ever, and probably ever will, I would think. You know, this is someone who, when we were growing up, drag was this kind of like scary, weird thing that would happen at bars down by the dock that you would sneak into. And then here's RuPaul in DC. I remember watching it live on TV, and this, you know, patriotic Americana outfit coming out to the world, and them actually being cool with it. That was the first time that happened. It was very subversive and sort of regarded as perverted, I would think, before then. You know, drag people were like kind of scared of it.
Which I mean, it's a shame that I sort of missed that a little bit.
I kind of love it too. I think
Yeah.
someone was posting like some, I'm just going to use my loose terms. This is the way I think, and you can hate me or love before, but the Bible beaters were like right outside the convention center.
Oh, I
on the
love that.
opening
Yeah,
day, and
yeah.
I was like, yes, you know,
we're
just,
like,
I kind of love that shit. I don't know
And
why.
that's, you know,
Easy, you know?
the thing about the
Can't
Boulet
hate
Brothers.
yourself, how are you gonna hate anybody else?
The thing about the Boulet Brothers, that if you don't know, the Boulet Brothers have a club here called Dragula, and it is absolutely gorgeous. It is where like the subversive queens can go and feel comfortable, and you can. And it's that there's still a bit of there's danger to drag there. You never know what the fuck is gonna happen, and that's how I like my drag. I like it a little terrifying.
That's the thing, like you were saying, how, you know, Michael Allen kind of took it his own way. That's our reaction to West Hollywood and what we experience. I'm like,
I get it.
"Oh,
I get it.
You don't want to let us in? We don't want to fucking sit with you anyways. How about that? We're over here. We're going to make it so fierce that you're going to then want to come over here, which of course has happened, and it's all good.
Yes.
But sometimes you don't want them to come to you.
No, I know.
Yeah.
I tell him, I'm like, I don't know. Should we like be cool? You know what I mean? I'm like, put up the barriers. But no, you know, we want to encourage everybody. We really try to celebrate all forms of drag, all of it. And so we try to bring out even these legendary queens that people don't know who they are. You guys probably know. You know, we always bring out people like Heclina and Peaches.
Boom, boom.
We went to New York. We brought out Head of Lettuce. We always make sure we represent the old school and the new and the super new school as well. So yeah, we kind of do that. That inspired us in that sense to do our own thing. You know.
No, I don't like when all of a sudden there's only one kind of anything, and
Yeah,
so I'm
absolutely.
all about the mixture and
For sure.
and the beauty of it. You've performed at Dragula.
I have New Year's. And
Yeah, Milk was with us New Year's Eve.
It was really. I mean, if you haven't experienced, who hasn't experienced Dragula?
Yeah. Oh, well.
Jesus.
So now, when is it? Next
Well,
Saturday?
it's Saturday night, and we're doing it at the Fall Line, and we're having the Ugly Ball.
Oh,
So
there you go.
basically, you know, 11 months out of the year, we want you to bring your best. So this party, we want you to bring your absolute most disgusting worst. So we're gonna celebrate just trash and filth and just being ugly in drag, though.
You could just leave your makeup on for today and then see how it looks in a week. And you'll be
You might win a few $100 in
let
cash.
that shit simmer
Well,
and it'll be just perfect.
I don't think there is anything more exciting than going to like your clubs or like in New York, Suzanne Barsh. Does anybody? Yeah, Suzanne Barsh. Yes, she is a legendary nightlife maven. Can I
She
use
was
maven?
sort of one of the people who discovered you, in fact.
Yeah, and so she has these parties that, I mean, anybody can come, and a lot of, I'm going to use the word normal people come just to see the whole fucking spectacle of it all, and that's amazing. And then they're like, oh my god, look at that weirdo, let's take a picture with them. But there's nothing more exciting to me than seeing like so many different looks, because at these parties, even though there is a theme, it's going to be a wide range of aesthetics and looks. And to me, that's much more exciting in nightlife than going to a bar and just seeing a cookie cutter image of, say, a Gina Gum or something like that.
Absolutely.
I think it just makes nightlife that much more exciting when there is that variety, like you were talking about.
Thank you. You know, I think it's the energy that you were talking about that makes that stuff successful. Because when we did that party, you know, we've done parties in LA for like 15 years at this point. And for us, you know, we got to a point where it was just a business. We're pumping out business people. People want money. When you make money, that's all they think about. And so the clubs start pressuring you. It's money, it's numbers. Dragula was like, can we just please put a stop on all this shit and do exactly what we want to do? And no one's probably going to come. And all our friends told us it was a horrible idea. I swear to God, they were like, don't do that. Nobody's coming. Nobody supported it. And we're like, I really don't give a shit. I was like, if it's us and 40 people, that'll just make our life a little more fun. And we did it, and it blew up. So I think that good energy just spread, and it let other people do whatever they want to do too, you know?
And being able to like surround yourself with people that respect what you do. They may do something completely different, but respect what you do, so you never feel any sort of anxiety
Well, and
about.
you get a feeling that, like, if anything is possible here, that this is a place you want to go, and it helps spur you on to it pushes you even further when everyone is saying, yes, that's fabulous, more.
Right.
And so, like, it becomes this sort of, like, cauldron where, like ideas keep bubbling up because you're all, like, making each other. Yeah.
It's true. It is inspiring in that way, for sure.
Well, I guess let's quickly sort of,
This was an important time, actually, in club culture, I think. Do you think you agree, right?
No, this was the end of everything.
Yeah, this is the
What
death.
happened in New York, basically, in this time period. This was after the club kids. Mayor Rudy Giuliani was elected, and he basically tried to clean up the city.
The quality of life campaign.
Yeah,
Yes.
so he basically bleached New York City. All the porn theaters went away. All the clubs started disappearing. They did
No,
raves
after
that
hours.
we would go to. This essentially killed the creative nightlife in New York at the time, and it caused a lot of people to leave. Actually, in my opinion, at least, New York City nightlife never
recovered.
came back from that. We just
No.
did Dragula there 2 months ago, and it was great. But you can tell that it's very different.
It's just a different landscape.
Yeah, Brooklyn is fun, but the island is very still bleached. It's very clean still.
As you know, what AIDS did in the '80s to creativity, I would honestly go as far as to say as Giuliani did it to New York in the '90s.
What ended up happening was, okay, there were like a ton of like rock and roll gay bars in the East Village. Is kind of like where I came out and like would go out. It was super awesome. It was amazing. But there were huge clubs where people, the big like New York mega club, all that stuff kind of shut down. The small rock and roll gay promoters kind of like dwindled away. Squeeze Box closed. The Cock, I think, was still there, but it just changed, and a lot of people moved, including us, from New York. It was like, well, let's look for something else. So we landed in LA, and then it's kind of like, okay, the next day we looked around and we're like, oh, there's Michael Schmidt, and there's Jackie B, and there's Mario. I'm like, what the fuck?
Like,
everybody's moving to LA. Like a lot of people moved
to
here.
a new start, and then I'm like, and see the same faces. And it wasn't all coordinated. Like, it was literally, I was like, let's go out, and we're like, what the fuck is Mario doing here? Just moved here. We're like, it's just like, I could come here and do a whole new thing, but everybody was thinking that. But it was awesome because it kind of changed nightlife here in LA as well. A lot of really fun clubs came out of that. So in the West Coast, you had a lot of raves. It was very like ravey.
Because there was all the space out here. You couldn't. There was no place to rave in Manhattan.
Yeah.
So
Except for the back of trucks.
we would drive like 4 hours to go to Field in New Jersey, but it wasn't the same as like here.
For sure, they had these giant warehouse parties, and so these guys actually, like, this is like Ernie Omega, Rocky Raccoon, these kind of people.
Boom Boom was out here.
Yeah, they kind of came up, and they were influenced by what James and the club kids in New York did. So they kind of mixed like rave culture and club kid culture together and kind of made their own little thing. I just thought it was worth mentioning because I think it was interesting. Now that leads into this next thing, which was a whole new phenomenon that we all bore witness to, which was the birth of the internet club kid celebrity, right? These are people that for us, we're like, oh, you want to be somebody, you got to look good, go out and have a good time. These were people that would reach huge amounts of fame without leaving the house. We're like, how the fuck is this happening? And it's true. There was a whole new group of people, of club kid kind of characters that were super mega famous that, really didn't go out much. It was just a whole weird phenomenon with Friendster. It started on like Friendster and MySpace and all that, and it was just a weird time.
I
think.
still find on transformations that I'll find these kids like in the middle of nowhere. I had some kid from Hattiesburg, Mississippi, and he had never gone out and drag before, but he has this brilliant like aesthetic, this whole little look that he just cooks up in his house and then takes pictures and has like 1 million followers.
Yeah,
Lyndon?
you
Yeah,
don't even have to
yeah.
leave the house. Like, there was a thing like before this time, it kind of meant something if you were near a city or you lived in a city and you knew where to go. You knew what scene was kind of happening. Your finger was on the pulse of what was going on where you lived. So when you showed up and you're like, oh, Milk is here and James, oh, we're gonna kiki with all these people, like, you knew when the cool shit was around you, you were part of it. When the internet arose and social networking, that kind of killed all of that. Now it doesn't so much matter. You don't even literally have to leave your bedroom to be like the fiercest thing out there with 10,000 fucking bajillion followers, loving, you put your fucking lunch sandwich online and people are like, blowing it up. It's like weird.
It's weird too because some of these guys would be, and they're very shy. You'll see them out and you expect club characters to be like, on fire. They're performers. They're talented. They're going crazy. These guys would be like in the corner, like scared of you. You're like, really? Right now, I'm feeling the whole like this whole like full drag but man body kind of sexiness thing that's happening, like with Grace Towers and Cabe Nolan in Texas has this look, and also this guy Zach the Barber in Seattle. They're super sexy. I love their energy because they are sort of epitomizing everything we're talking about.
It's that gender queer.
Yeah, they've completely split. It's like, we were talking about club kids and drag and how it was hardcore in the beginning and it's changed and evolved. They're sort of the epitome, I think, of that new. They have a whole new thing going on. It's really neat. I know back in the day it would be like, if you're a drag queen, just to be frank, it was like, you're not getting fucked. You know what I mean? Like, if you're a drag queen, you're not hooking up, you're not attractive. You're popular at the club, but you're not, none of that.
The sex appeal is gone. And
there's no sex appeal. And the sex appeal of these guys is just like off the chart.
We've got to wrap it up. Yeah, we have to. Thank you, guys. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.